So here's a pretty interesting story that I wanted to share with all you. This is in Forbes. Won't get the COVID vaccine? If you're fired, you may not get unemployment benefits. So they go on to explain that if there's cause to fire you, then you might not get unemployment benefits. And it all determines as to whether or not that's viewed as legitimate cause to fire you. So perhaps there's some states where you would get unemployment benefits, but there might be states where you won't get unemployment benefits. And there's also been a number of stories coming out. I'm sure you guys have seen them of, it depends on the industry. It depends on what they're doing. But I think there was 175 nurses that got fired. I don't remember how big the pool was of people. So what's happening is there are plenty of places that have the Biden mandate in place, which is either get vaccinated or test, where you have the choice of those things. But then there's other places, other fields, other industries, other companies where they're like, no, you have to get vaccinated, and that's the end of the conversation. And if you don't, then you get fired. So you guys know my stance on this, and it has not changed from the very beginning of this thing. I think that the Biden policy is the correct policy, and I think the default should be you get vaccinated. But I like giving people the out of getting tested. If for whatever reason they're massively anti-vaccine, they could be religious, it could be ideological, it could be they're just wrong and have been brainwashed by a bunch of charlatans and con men and frauds and people who don't know how to read the evidence and data accurately. That's possible too. But I think you got to allow that wiggle room, man. So now a good counter to what I'm saying is this. Well, aren't there some industries where it really should be vaccinate or be gone? Because they're just too high risk to have unvaccinated there, and it affects everybody else so much that, it would be terrible if that was the case. To that, I say, maybe. If you work in a nursing home or something like that, school, I could see more of an argument on those fronts in certain limited fields. But I will say, generally, vaccinate or test is my stance. And so not only do I think it's sort of outrageous that these people can't get unemployment benefits, I also just wouldn't have fired them in the first place, man. Now, don't get it twisted, guys. I'm as pro-vaccine as it gets. I got the vaccine as soon as I could. I've showed the charts. I've showed the data on the show time and time again. This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated at this point. That is accurate. Over 90% of the people getting hospitalized, over 90% of the people dying, over 90% of the people with severe illness, it's unvaccinated. So it works. You should get the vaccine. And watch any of my segments where I go into detail about how they work and what happened with them in the trial runs. Did you know in the original trials for the vaccine, not a single person who got the vaccine was hospitalized or died of COVID? Not a single person in the trial for every single vaccine. Okay, it's effective. Are there more breakthrough cases with Delta? Yes, but those cases are generally very mild because you're vaccinated. So get the vaccine. But I do not like the trend of just firing people because they didn't get it. I think that you should give them the out of testing. Now, maybe you say, hey, man, we need really stringent testing. Okay, I'll take it. Fine. You want to give them a rapid test every day they get to work? I have no problem with that. You know how easy the rapid test is? It's not the thing that's got to go all the way up and basically touch your fucking brain when you use the Q-tip. It just goes right in the front part of your nose, and you swirl the cotton swab around, and you put it in a thing, and in 10 minutes you figure out. That's not overly burdensome. That's not a regulation that's unfair. I don't think that's a big restriction on your freedom. I think that's a basic safety regulation, and I'm in favor of if you say vaccinate or test every day. Okay, fine, I'll take it. But I don't like firing them, and I definitely don't like denying them unemployment. And you are giving them sort of a legitimate claim of victimhood now. You are. I do think that, because now I have sympathy for these people. When previously, I was just like, get vaccinated, don't be silly. But now I look at it and I'm like, well, I do think these policies are a little bit too harsh. And final point is this. When people say that the mandates aren't working, that's not true. Now, listen, I'm not in favor of a hard mandate for the reasons I just discussed. I think that's too much of an authoritarian move. It cuts too much against personal liberty and freedom, which is why I like the out of giving people a testing option. But I also can look at numbers, and the numbers are clear. mandates actually do work in terms of getting more people vaccinated, so it has the desired outcome. So if anybody tries to tell you, oh, the mandates are going to backfire because then people aren't going to get vaccinated, no. The number of people who are resigning or who are getting fired is tiny compared to the number of people who are effectively complying and saying, okay, I guess I got to get the vaccine. So they work. Hard mandates work. But again, my disagreement with them is not that I'm saying they don't work. It's me saying it's a principle disagreement of I just think that's a little too authoritarian, a little too restrictive, and I do like giving people that out of testing if they so choose. So I don't like people getting fired for it, and I don't like them not receiving unemployment. That's too harsh, and I think that does give them a victim complex that's not unfounded, and I don't want these people to be viewed as victims. I want them to be looked at as what they are, which is people who are wrong because of a religious reason, wrong because of an ideological reason, or wrong because they were brainwashed, and are just convinced that in the wrong position, that these things don't work. And the final point is this: don't you dare, I beg of all of you, don't fall down the rabbit hole of anecdotal bullshit, because million smart people's brains have been left as roadkill when they go down that path. And that's why every time I talk about this, I give my own anecdote. Sagar and Jetty got COVID, had a breakthrough case. Crystal was with him when he was mildly symptomatic. Knowing how contagious Delta is, she should have gotten it. She didn't get it. Probably because she's vaccinated. And then, of course, I do the show with Crystal, and I'm with her a lot, and I should have gotten it too. And I didn't get it. Probably because I'm vaccinated. So if you are inclined to sort of fall for the game of here's my anecdote, okay, well, there's an anecdote for you. You want another anecdote for you? Everybody in my personal life has been vaccinated, and nobody had a really bad reaction to the vaccine. The worst was maybe like a day of very mild cold symptoms. You know, maybe some chills, a headache or something. My personal experience was 24 hours after I got the vaccine, I had a headache that lasted maybe 2 or 3 hours, and then it went away, and I was fine. No chills, no other symptoms, no problems. So if you want, again, if you're the type to fall for anecdotes, well, there's my anecdote. Everybody around me had a wonderful reaction to it. Nobody has gotten COVID since they've gotten vaccinated. Crystal should have gotten it. I should have gotten it. We didn't get it. So there you go. Counteract that with the people who say, well, I know somebody who died after they got it. That the anti-vaxxers were pointing to data. They were like, look at the thousands of people who died after they got it. We vaccinated, over 150 million Americans? And you see that some people died. Some of these people were like 85 years old, and they got the vaccine and then they died. They could have just died, right? Sometimes people just die at 85. Is it that crazy to you that happens? But I swear, some anti-vaxxers look at that data and they're like, oh, that's because of the vaccine. What? I mean, it's just they're working backwards from their conclusion. They want the vaccine to be, to be incorrect and a conspiracy and it doesn't work and it's a devious plot or whatever. You can hold two positions at the same time. Big Pharma is greedy, they're corrupt, they are profit-driven, and also antibiotics work. And if I break my arm, I'm going to get it set and then put in a cast. And vaccines work, just like the fucking polio one I got, and the rubella, and the measles, and the tetanus, and the this and the that, and now the COVID one. Anyway, I digress. Don't make these people victims. Unfortunately, that's exactly what's happening.